All right, should we go ahead and start then? Okay.
I'm ready.
All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to another session of the Microstructure Exchange. Today we're very happy to have Chaojun Wang from the Wharton School presenting on China walls. Chaojun has asked to just go ahead and ask questions as they come up, so feel free to interrupt. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to you. The floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you so much for including this paper on the micro exchange program. This is joint work with Tomy Lee from Central European University and Daniel Nathan from Hong Kong Polytechnic University, who was previously at Bank of Israel. So what do we look at in this paper? That in the financial markets, bank conglomerates have managed, provide multiple different services to different clients, and there is an inherent conflict of interest in these different roles. So, for example, a dealer, a bank conglomerate like GS, operate a dealer that provide market making services to clients, to funds, and also at the same time, GS manages its own fund. So when the GS dealer trades with a client, another fund, the dealer may glean some order flow information or some other kind of client-specific private information from the trade, and the GS dealer may have incentive to leak that information to the GS fund. So that is the conflict of interest that we consider in this paper. And now, how do regulators respond to this incentive? The regulators impose a China wall, which involves, for example, separate entryways, separate elevators, and also soundproof and opaque physical barriers if the offices are on the same floor. So the aim of the China walls is to preempt information leakage of material private information between the dealer and the fund, especially from the dealer to the fund. There are similar rules on other type of industries such as consultancy, accounting firms, and law firms, which also include their own conflict of interest, which require information barriers like China walls. Now, historically, the China walls is very hard to enforce and have not been well enforced because information sharing is private, plausibly deniable, and they occur typically between fully aligned affiliates. So basically, it's going to be very hard for regulators to prosecute information sharing because it's very hard to prove in a court. You can't even prove the existence of information sharing, let alone proving any damage that can be caused by information sharing. So the status of the legal status of this China wall is basically that it's literally no enforcement up until very recently. Now, in 2008, first, the crisis led the regulators to tighten China walls. In particular, the Dodd-Frank Act, which was in 2010, authorized the SEC to prosecute failures to maintain China walls around dealer arms, even if the SEC cannot prove misuse of confidential information, which is a very hard legal bar. But now, from 2010 onward, the SEC doesn't have to meet that legal bar to prosecute violations. Now, however, the SEC only start to fully exercise this authority starting from July of 2018, where the SEC fined Mizuho Securities $1.25 million for lacking effective China walls, and in this case, without citing any evidence of illicit information. So this is the first case of enforcement where the SEC started using this authority in 2018. And starting from 2018 onward, there are other similar cases where the SEC fined Morgan Stanley, Virtual Financials for similar violations. Now, the research question is whether or not today's China walls are effectively enforced, because historically, it has not been well enforced. And only after 2018, the SEC started going after particular funds on a case-by-case basis. The question is whether that is enough to deter information sharing and cause a change in the enforcement regime becomes effective. So we test whether China wall enforcement is effective in the Israeli shekel foreign exchange market. We have the universe of all foreign exchange trades involving shekel, and the China walls aim to block dealers from their affiliate funds. Now, there are two challenges. The first one is measurement, because we cannot measure We cannot directly observe information sharing like regulators. That's the challenge that that prevents the enforcement in the first place, and that makes the research question non-trivial. Now we are going to use a proxy, which is the trading activity and the profit of a potential recipient of information share of private information, and that's a proxy, and there is going to be a potential confounder, because the trading activity and profit of a potential information recipient can react to a dealer making certain trade, even in the absence of information sharing. And I'm going to be more precise about that. And the solution, our strategy, is to use a control, which is the funds that are fully unrelated to a given dealer as control. Now, presumably, the dealer, a fund who is fully unrelated to a given dealer, is not going to receive any information from that dealer, because they are completely unrelated. They don't trade with each other. They are unaffiliated. They just have nothing to do with each other. So with that control group, we are able to parcel out. We are going to isolate the effect of information sharing. So if there's any information sharing between a dealer and its affiliated funds, we will be able to detect that. Now, the second challenge is that we can possibly examine all possible conditions under which the violation could occur. And our strategy is to focus on days when the dealers hold especially valuable information. And that will allow us, so that's the case where information leakage and violation is most likely to occur. But we also show, if I have time in the presentation, I'll also show that at other times, the violation of the China wall is also absent. So that's going to be our result. We show that there is no information sharing between dealers and their affiliated funds. Now, actually, it's precisely the 2018 Mizuho case that stops that information sharing between dealers and affiliate funds. We will have a short sample before. Jane, you have a question?
Yeah. So I didn't understand the last bullet point. So is the idea behind the regulation, is that not to eliminate the insider trading? I mean, you're saying otherwise they just redirect it to the so-called clients and they're still using insider information?
Yes, the goal, the primary objective is to stop inside trading, leakage of MNPI, material non-public information that could be used for inside trading. And the China one is actually more blunt of a tool. They don't have to, so the new enforcement rule is such that the SEC doesn't have to prove any inside trading, the existence of any inside trading. They don't have to provide evidence of any inside trading. All they have to say is that, oh, your infrastructure, your firm, the infrastructure of your firm is not set up in a way that the China wall is strict. There is a risk, a heightened risk of potential violations, and that's enough.
Yeah. But how come they're sharing with clients? That's my question.
How can they, pardon me?
Yeah, how can they share with clients? I mean,
Good
they should just disclose, right? I mean, that's how the insider rules typically behave.
You are referring to the second bullet point.
Very last part,
The very last bullet point, yes.
Right.
So they can share, what our design detects is any kind of information sharing, not only the kind of illegal information sharing that would cause illegal trading. So there, for example, to be more concrete, a dealer can, for example, and this happens all the time, a dealer, they provide market collars to their clients. They will say that today, for this particular currency pair, shekel versus euro, the market sentiment is such. They cannot provide client-specific private information, but they can provide market color to their clients. Now, the China wall even stops that from happening.
Yeah.
Yes. So providing market color is common, perfectly legal, and the dealers do that all the time with their clients to maintain relationship, etc., for various business purposes. Okay. So this is our finding, that the 2018 enforcement, starting from 2018, the Mizuho security settlement literally stops the information sharing between affiliate dealers and the affiliate funds. And at the same time, we find lots of information sharing between dealers and clients, which we just talked about, and also among funds that are affiliated with each other. For example, Goldman Sachs may have two different funds, they are affiliated with each other, and the China wall does not apply to affiliated funds. And in that case, those funds, what we find that those funds, they do share information with each other intensely. So this is our empirical strategy. We use a diff and diff with, quote, never treated controls. So we start with the event.
Chaojun,
Yes.
this is Albert
Albert, hi.
Menkveld. Since you let me interrupt,
Yeah, of course.
I decided to take the liberty. This is all very interesting. I'm still a little fuzzy on what Goldman Sachs can and cannot tell their clients.
Okay.
So suppose they get a big trade and they see who it is and they have a reasonable assessment about whether it's informed or no. Then they might whisper to their clients that this is a huge uninformed trade. You want to take the other side. That benefits their clients vis-a-vis the rest of the market. Is that allowed?
I recently
or is that
talked.
Not allowed?
This is a gray area. So you're saying that I'm going to say, well, there is some big uninformed trader who just made a big trade.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you who that person is, who that fund is. But I'm just going to tell you that it's sufficient for you to know that this is unrelated, uninformed, etc. You should take the other side of the trade. I talked to a market maker. They say that this is literally on the gray area. So this could be illegal, but the rule is not. But this is just one conversation. But
in general, so there's different rules for what they can do with their clients relative to what they can do with their affiliated funds.
Yes.
So the stricter rules for what they can do for their affiliated funds.
Literally, the extremely strict rule for the affiliate funds, which is they cannot even talk to each other.
Nothing. Yeah.
They can't say, I had a sushi last night. They can't even chat like that. Yeah.
Understood. All right, thanks.
So our design is basically going to try to detect any kind of information sharing that's material that can cause responses in trading. So of course, it's going to pick up the kind of market color between connected funds, which is legal in this case. Okay, so we have an event dealer. What does an event dealer do? On one day, the event dealer makes an exceptionally large trade with any other counterparty. And what is an exceptionally large trade? It's a top 0.1 percentile of all the trades by that particular dealer in our entire sample period. I'm going to show you why we choose such an event in 2 slides. And then, the dealer makes a large trade, and we think this large trade indicates that the dealer has valuable information that potentially can be leaked to the affiliate. So we look at the affiliate and check whether the affiliate has abnormal trading activity on or after this event. So this is the DID setting. And our outcome variable, we have 3 different outcome variables. One is the standard gross dollar volume of this affiliate fund on or after the event. So this is going to capture any abnormal trading activity, whether it's in the direction of the event trade or whether it's in the opposite direction. We don't, this is just a very gross measure of if you're going to react to this event at all, we're going to capture that. And the second outcome variable is the net dollar volume in the direction of the event trade. So meaning that we are going to look at whether the affiliate fund is going to trade in the same direction as the event dealer. And lastly, we're going to look at the P&L, which is a 1-week future P&L of the affiliate fund. So if the affiliate fund buys on or after the event dealer, is that buy trade going to make profit for the affiliate fund? Now, these activities is going to we're going to look at the affiliate fund and also relative to a control group, which is the unrelated fund. What's the idea here? The assumption that we're making is that because the fund is unrelated to the event dealer, so meaning that they are not affiliated and they never trade with each other in our sample, that means we assume that in this case that the unrelated dealer is not going to the unrelated fund is not going to receive any private information from the event dealer. They don't have any business relationship with each other. So using the unrelated fund as a control, we can basically isolate any potential information sharing between the affiliate fund and the event dealer that cause any reaction in the outcome variables. Now, one concern is that maybe this design, cannot capture any information sharing. Now, we are going to have a falsification test because we know from the literature that the dealer talks to their clients all the time, providing market colors, giving various informations, etc. So we want to see whether our design can capture that kind of information sharing. And that's the other falsification test, where we use a fund that is connected to the dealer, for which we know that there is information sharing between them. And our design can reliably capture intense reaction of the connected fund on or after the event trade. And that's going to be our falsification test. We're going to provide a battery of that evidence in the presentation. So the data has all the foreign exchange trades involving shekel. Now, we choose this market for various reasons. The first reason is that this market basically has the same largest dealers, even though it's the shekel market, but it's the same largest dealers and similar laws as the broader US dollar market, and also as the broader OTC markets for other asset classes. And we have 23 million trades. Most of them are between Israeli shekel and US dollar. Most of them are spot trades. We also have forward and swaps. The full sample has 10.6 million fund day observations, which we construct as a panel. So the first thing that I wanted to show you, a first piece of evidence, is simply the trading activity between affiliate funds. So what do I mean by that? So on the left panel, we have the trading volume between a dealer and an unaffiliated fund. So basically it measures all the dealer-client trading volume in our sample period between 2018 and 2024, and we see this is of course you see a lot of volume here, and the thin red line here is the July 2018 Missouri settlement. On the right hand side, we have the trading activity between dealer and affiliated fund, all the gross volume that occur between affiliate pairs. So before 2018, you see some trades between the affiliate pairs, and shortly after, that trading activity stops. So that means today, if you talk to a dealer, they will say that they never trade with their clients directly. They never trade with their affiliated funds directly, and this only actually happens shortly after July of 2018. So that's the first piece of evidence that the enforcement regime actually stops the direct trading between dealer and affiliate fund. Now, this does not tell us whether they still share information, and that's what we're going to look at next. So we have in our sample various bank conglomerates, and here in this table, I want to focus on two numbers. One is basically for Israel. In Israel, there are 18 dealers, and all of them do not have any affiliate funds. The reason is because in Israel, the Israeli dealers, they are not allowed to have affiliate funds. Now, why does this matter for us? This matters because in Israel, basically, you cannot, a firm cannot operate a dealer and a fund at the same time. They have to be separated for the conflict of interest purpose. And therefore, they don't have a China wall because they don't have to. They have a more strict version. They just don't allow them to exist under the same umbrella. So they don't have China walls. Now, this means that any violation have to be enforced in this market, have to be enforced by the SEC through its long-arm jurisdiction. And any reporting, because our data comes from the Bank of Israel, any reporting of trades that indicate crime basically cannot be prosecuted because the Bank of Israel is not gonna enforce the China wall. They don't have the China walls. So this makes actually this market a conservative lab for us in that if we find enforcement in this market, we can reasonably infer that the enforcement is going to be even better, at least as good in the US, in Europe, and elsewhere where the China wall is actually legally a rule. So now we focus on if it's exceptionally large trade. Why? Now this is because the exceptionally large trade predict future price movement. This is the definition. This is why we think that these trades include information. So this is the return, the future return after an event trade. And the top line indicates that the event trade predicts future price movement for up to 5 days. These are 5 significant positive returns. So if the event trade is in a certain direction, then the price movement is going to move in that direction for up to 5 days significantly. Now we also look at the other size bucket. So instead of the top 0.1 percentile, we look at the 10 to 10.1 percentile, 20 to 20.1 percentile, etc. And none of them predict future price movement. So only the top 0.1% trades predict future price movement. So from this, we validate our basically identification assumption that the exceptionally large trade, the top 0.1 percentile of trades in terms of trade size, include private information, and only those trades indicate arrival of private information. So here's our main results. We have a outcome variable, so one of the three: gross volume, net volume, and 1-week P&L. We look at whether the fund is affiliated or unrelated. So if the fund is affiliated with an event dealer, then the affiliate variable is 1. So this is basically the treatment variable. If it's unrelated, then that's 0. That's the control group. And we look at the reaction of this outcome variable 5 days before and 5 days after an event. L is the event date, and tau is between -5 and 5, basically 1 trading week around the event date. We include a event and fund fixed effect. So what does this do? This basically allows us to capture the treatment effect of a given fund before and after a given event. What does that mean? It means what we are comparing is not two different funds in the same event. It's literally the same fund in a time series before and after a given event, in a given event, and we are going to compare that relative to the control group. The control group is the unrelated fund. So what we are capturing is any abnormal trading activity of a given fund, of an affiliate fund, before and after a given event relative to an unrelated fund, before and after the event. And then we have a calendar day fixed effect, which is going to absorb all macro economic news shock. And we have an event day calendar effect, event day fixed effect, which captures any calendar event day specific shocks. And yeah, that's it. And I wanted to say that the most important feature here is the control group. And I will talk about the kind of confounders it rules out. And actually the calendar day fixed effect, event day fixed effect, we have tried including them, removing them. They don't change results materially. Most of the confounding shocks have been absorbed by our control group. Now, as a falsification test, as I mentioned, we are going to apply the exact same specification to connected funds by replacing the affiliate with the connected at the treatment group. Our connected definition is a fund is connected to an event dealer if and only if the fund has traded more than 10 times with the event dealer on sample. We drop the funds that trade with the event dealer on or after the event day. So any direct trading, if a fund has made any, so if a connected fund has actually traded with the event dealer on or after the event day, 5 days after, we just drop that fund because we don't want to pick up any mechanical effect, not just information sharing, we don't want to pick up any mechanical effect. So this is the kind of full confounders that we can rule out. I just talked about the direct trading. So if there's any direct trading between the event dealer and an affiliate fund or a connected fund, well, then obviously we're going to pick up a reaction. If the event dealer makes a big trade, maybe that big trade is precisely with the treated fund, and that's going to cause a mechanical spike in the reaction of the treated fund. Now, our response is that we're going to drop any fund, any treated fund that have directly traded with the event dealer within that 1 week trading window. Now, there are two other shocks. One is that there may be public news, macro shocks to the entire market. And the second one is more subtle, is a event-specific shock, which means that an event dealer makes a large trade. Maybe, let's think about a world where there's no information sharing. There's no violation of China walls, etc. The event dealer makes a large trade, and that event dealer has to unwind that trade with some other counterparties. They have to offload the inventory. They offload that inventory with some other traders. And indirectly, that other trader could want to unwind their position to some other traders. And indirectly, that trade could percolate through the trading network to an unrelated fund. And this story has no information sharing. And still, an event dealer's large trade can indirectly cause a reaction of the unrelated fund. And now, how do we deal with that? That's a confounder that can, that can potentially drive a reaction in the unrelated fund. And our response is that we're going to use the control group, the unrelated. We're going to use the unrelated fund as the control group, because any indirect impact that I just talked about is going to affect the affiliated fund as well as the unrelated fund to pretty much the same extent. So using the unrelated fund as a control, we will be able to partial out any such indirect impacts of the event.
Chaojun,
yes.
Chaojun, this is Albert again. I like the way that you spend a lot of time thinking about how to design this test, because obviously it's critical. One thing that I don't see is handled here, but I might have missed it, is if I'm so I like this part about large trades, but I could be, if it's such a large trade that I have to drive to the market, I might want to use more than one dealers. To make the point, let's take it to the extreme. I'm using all dealers at the same time to work this trade through the market. And sort of everything's contaminated, right? And it's hard to then assign this to a single dealer. You see what I mean?
Yeah, order splitting. If you wanted to split a large trade into smaller orders, and
across dealers,
across dealers. So I guess there are two responses. One is the smaller, this picture, which shows that the smaller trades, they are not able to predict price movement. Now, this could be, for example, because the smaller trades, maybe 99% of the smaller trades do not have information, but 1% of the smaller trades do have information. Another evidence that we provide, if I have that slide, smaller trades, is this picture. This picture basically shows that we focus on the top 0.1 percentile of large trade, and what we see is that the connected funds, they share information precisely after these events. Now, however, if we focus on smaller trades, then we see that the coefficient is very close to 0, even for connected funds. Meaning that for those funds that are connected with each other, dealer and funds that are connected with each other, the smaller trades, the first picture shows that the smaller trades probably do not predict future price movement. And second, the connected funds, they do not share information with each other. They could, but they don't. And the last piece of evidence is that we do the same thing for affiliates. This is the affiliate, and what we see is that for all the buckets, top 0.1% or the smaller ones, our design cannot detect any information sharing.
So that is somewhat convincing, but I'm not, because really what you want to do is you want to compare that to those small trades that happened at the same time that the large trade came in. There might be some attribute of that particular order that makes people realize, oh, there's something going on. The dealers might even be mutually connected, and if they both see something coming, that they know there's a will in the market. I mean, it'd be nice if you had, for example, I don't know if the data's thick enough, that you had days where there was a large trade and no other trades with any other dealers around it, and then see what happens, so that you can also rule out this spreading of orders across dealers.
Got it. So the idea here is maybe many different dealers make many small trades, but they all come from the same hidden large trade that a dealer actually intended to make, and we want to just focus on days where there's one large trade by one dealer and no other dealers are making
at least in the window around it. All right,
good point.
Good.
Thank you. I see some messages in the
Related
chat.
to that point, also if there is enforcement, won't it be a natural response to reduce the size and do order splitting, get around that way, right?
Good question. So this is our distribution of events across times. And what we see is that the events are pretty much evenly distributed across time. So the dealers, they do not shrink their trade size, because if they do shrink their trade size, then we're going to see that the number of events will drop in our sample.
Great.
Okay, let me go back to the confounders. So we used the unrelated, basically we used the unrelated funds to partial out any, for example, stories like liquidity impact, liquidity depletion, etc. The event dealer has to make liquidity trades with others, and which may indirectly impact the affiliate funds. So we partial those effects out. And at the same time, that control group will also partial out the public news and macro shocks, which basically makes the calendar day fixed effect a little bit redundant, but we still include it to be conservative. There is also another way that that you can see a reaction in the affiliate funds, which is that maybe there is a common source, a third-party common source of information that both reach the event dealer and the affiliate fund. Now, the fact that we do not find any reaction in the affiliate funds after the event day indicates that this channel is not important in practice. Okay, so this is our results. We have the 3 outcome variables, and here is day 0 is the event date. This is the affiliate fund's outcome variable on or after the event day. So what we see is that there is no reaction. They do not react nor gain from the information, the information contained in the especially large trade of the event. Now, at the same time, our design can detect information sharing between connected pairs. So this is the exact same design applied to the connected pairs, a dealer and a client with whom they have a trading relationship. And what we see is that there is a spike of trading activity of the connected funds, both in gross volume, in net volume, and also in the 1-week future P&L of the connected funds. Now, when we measure the future P&L, we are using the closing price from the Bloomberg instead of the transaction price. So we kind of rule out any effect of the bid-ask spread market microstructure measure. So what this P&L is doing is literally, if I'm buying today, then I know that the closing price today will move up within the next 5 days. The closing price today will move up 5 days later. Closing price minus closing price. Now, as I just showed you, that the coefficient estimate is close to 0 for smaller trades, even for the connected pairs. And what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that the information, our design detects information sharing if such sharing exists, and only if such sharing exists. That's the message that we want to deliver with this plot. Because if there is no arrival of information material information, which we showed for the smaller trades, they don't predict future price movement. Our design is not going to spit false positives. It's going to say that there is no information sharing among the connector guys. They could, but they choose not to, because there is no material information to be shared to begin with. Let me go back. So we use this design to validate our, this falsification test to validate our design. Okay, another validation comes from the 2018 enforcement. As I said, before 2018, technically the SEC could go after people, but they never happened. And we know that Wall Street people, they don't usually follow the rules closely unless they know that there is going to be consequences. So in 2018, by the way, this is recorded. Okay, so I strike the last line. Sorry. So before 2018, before July of 2018, we see that there is actually, our design does detect information sharing between affiliate pairs. In Q1 of 2018, that's where our sample starts, as well as in Q2 of 2018. And starting from Q3 of 2018, right after the Missouri settlement, that information sharing stops, according to our design. Now, one question is, maybe there's some other regulatory changes that have basically affected information sharing, not through China walls, but maybe just reduce the incentive of the dealers to share any information with either affiliate or connected. Now, we show that this is not the case, because for the connected guys, for the connected pairs, They share the strength of their information sharing is equally strong before and after Q2 July 2018. What does this mean? We infer from this picture that other regulatory changes around that time are unlikely to have affected information sharing and caused a reduction of information sharing between affiliate pairs. So the only thing that we think is responsible is the enforcement of the China walls. We provide a battery of heterogeneity tests. By the way, I see there's some questions. Before I go to the details, maybe I want to take some questions from the chat. Do we know who's, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, do we know who's bearing the adverse selection cost to this information leakage? Is it other dealers or affiliate clients? The first order is the clients. So let me read out the question out loud first. Who is bearing the adverse selection cost to this information leakage? Is it other dealers or unaffiliated clients? The first order is the unaffiliated clients because the dealer's information mostly is order flow information. And this is, there's an earlier picture in international finance that shows that for foreign exchange trades, at least, the spot market, the macro variables, inflation, interest rates, etc., they actually do not predict future price movement. Actually, it's the market microstructure order flow information that contains incremental information. And that information is especially concentrated among the dealers because the dealers trade with all the unaffiliated clients and they get the market color thing and they can provide that information to potentially affiliated funds. So the first order entities at stake is unaffiliated clients. General question, not to this paper. Had harm from this type of trades been even proven, or SEC bases its reasoning on the vague idea that all insider trade is bad? That I'm not aware whether there is any damage that has been proven for general inside trading. I think probably is, but I don't have a case on the top of my head. I see that Tommy and Daniel are in the audience. If you know something, just jump in. Yeah. Okay, it's very interesting that the information sharing stopped after the Mizuho settlement. You show 2019. Have you also looked at in more recent years? Did the behavior restart? So our sample goes, I think, to the end of 2020, maybe not to the end, but to somewhere in 2024. Yeah, to mid 2024 ish, and we see that this, at least up until that point, we do not see the behavior restart. Do we have more recent sample? Well, probably not. Yeah, probably not. Are large trades always a signal of information sharing? While picture shows that on average, they do contain more valuable information than other buckets of trades. Now, the large trades do not always have to have signal information sharing. I guess that would be my response. Okay, there was another thing I didn't recall that you have. Okay, good. Okay, if I missed any questions in the chat, please just raise your hand or just type another message in the chat. Okay, so let me go back to my heterogeneity tests. What we see is that the hedge funds, they are going to respond more strongly than other types of connected funds. Now that's consistent with the idea that hedge funds are actively pursuing proprietary information, and that the spot event trades, they trigger strongest responses. What we also see is that the large and small event trades splits have similar connected coefficient. So because our event is defined based on the 0.1% of a particular dealer's trade, so some event trade could be larger than some others, and what we find is that they have approximately the same coefficient for the connected funds. That is inconsistent with the inventory management story or the illiquidity story due to event trade itself, because if the reaction of the connected fund is driven by inventory management or illiquidity, then we're going to see a differential coefficient. We also see that the results are approximately the same when constraining to conglomerate, affiliate, or independent control funds. So there is one special favor exchange story which says that I cannot share information with my affiliate, you cannot share information with your affiliate. Well, let's do a favor exchange. I'm going to share my information with your affiliate. In return, you will share information with my affiliate. Now, how do we deal with that? Well, we can only use independent control funds, which are funds that do not have any affiliated dealers, so that such favor exchange cannot plausibly exist. And we find the results remain the same. So let me summarize that. I think I have a few more. Yes, okay. The dealers, they cease to trade with their affiliated funds soon after the Mizuho case. They do share information. They do trade with the Mizuho with affiliate funds before, but they stop trading after. And that the China walls also become enforced in the following sense, that there is the Mizuho case stops information sharing between the affiliate dealers and the affiliate funds. Before that exists, but after it, that stops. However, the information sharing exists and is overwhelming among the connected funds because we know that the market color is being provided, and our design can reliably pick that up. Let me skip the contribution. Let me quickly we talked about the event distribution, summary stats. Yeah, okay, so I think I talked about everything I wanted to cover in this presentation.
All right, well, thank you very much. And we can open it up for more questions. So if you have another question at this point, please go ahead and raise your hand. Or if you're not able to ask it in voice, type in the chat and I can relay it. And maybe in the meantime, while we're waiting for other questions to come up, I'll go ahead and ask a question of my own. So I'm wondering if, when we see this Mizuho ruling coming in that leads to a reduction in this information sharing, I wonder if there are other variables that we might look at that we might think would also be related to a reduction in this information sharing. Like, so for example, maybe you could look at the prices that these clients are getting for their large trades. Like a rough intuition that I might have had is like, if I'm able to do information leakage to my affiliate fund, that's like an added benefit that maybe gives me an additional incentive to try to compete to win these large trades. And then when I'm no longer able to do that, maybe now I have less reason to try to win these. And so the prices that these large trades are getting might be worse.
I see.
So I don't know, have you looked at anything like that?
That's a good point. I see. You are saying that when they anticipated the possibility of sharing information, maybe they're more willing to make certain large trades because they want to chase that information and so that they can provide the information to their affiliates. Maybe that if that incentive stops, then their incentive to chase information, large trades, etc., may have been reduced. Good point.
Plausibly,
yes.
Could be interesting if you could see that.
Yes. I hope my co-authors are taking notes. Oh, Albert and then Jane. Oh. Albert, did you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
And this is really, it's great that you did this study. There's so much to learn and directions to take this into. one thing that strikes me is what's really amazing about this is, you have a regulator that fires one shot, and the shot's not even large. It's 1.25 million. 1.25 million, and all of these dealers start to behave. If we believe that there's benefits of dealers not sharing inside information, and you picked it up in the shekel market, and you said along the way that this might be small relative to what's happening in the other FX markets. We know FX markets are huge to begin with.
Yes.
And so it's staggering that 1.25 million can make such a difference, and maybe going forward, regulators should use this study to. And I've been doing this locally in the Dutch market to tell the regulators it's good to put out some fines. It might make some people unhappy that are on the inside of the market, but the outside of the market benefits. And to the earlier point that what is there harm that is a demonstrable harm caused by insider trading? Well, and I haven't seen the paper being written, but I do know. I do have a strong intuition that the people that we want to have in the market are the uninformed investors, because they're the reason that there's liquidity to begin with, and that creates a breeding ground for informed traders to collect the information and trade it in the market. So it all starts with these uninformed investors participating. And if these people in the fringes of the market, being uninformed, being potentially small, have the feeling that that there's all kinds of favors dealt among the insiders of the market, or whoever's on the inside, they might not participate. It all starts to unravel. Anyway, this is a long-winded point to say that, and it's more a comment on the relevance of one of the takeaways that I have from your paper. But great work. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Albert, for the comment. Just wanted to add. I agree with everything. Just wanted to add one thing is that it's a combination of. First of all, the actual enforcement. This Mizuho case was not even in the foreign exchange market. Second, I think is the legal authority that the SEC has to pursue these potential violations without having to prove anything, without actually having to prove. So it's a risk-based approach. Now, without the risk-based approach, it's just going to be very hard, and people understand that it's going to be very hard. Maybe they go after one guy, they sweat a lot in court, and they manage to pull something. So I guess the policy message that the study delivers is that a risk-based enforcement authority could be very powerful for the regulators to have.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Albert. Jay.
Yeah. So I think I understood from your presentation that you're assuming large trades are privately informed, but there are also many large trades which are liquidity driven or just for hedging, right? So
yes.
Can you do an exercise where you're able to separate those two out? Maybe that'll actually strengthen the result which you're trying to show. It was liquidity shocks, hedging needs. I mean, there are lots of other reasons why there may be a large trade.
Yeah. At this point, our strategy to deal with liquidity shocks is through our control group in order to parcel that out. So the idea here is that a liquidity shock, okay, I have to, maybe I already skipped the slide. Let me see. Ooh, sorry for, yeah, okay. A liquidity shock can reach an unaffiliated fund as well as an unrelated fund indirectly. So the idea that that channel exists equally for both unrelated and affiliate, we use that to parcel out any liquidity impact. And your question is different. You're asking whether we can clearly separate two kinds of, maybe one, we have two large trade. One trade we know that's uninformed. The other trade is also large. We know that it's informed, and whether or not we can see any differential in reactions. That is a good point.
Yeah, by mixing, you're actually reporting much more conservatively, right? In terms of which information actually is shared and then results in a trade. If there are also liquidity trades mixed in here.
Sorry. Say, I missed it. Say it again.
I mean, to the extent you're still finding results, so you're reporting conservatively because you're mixing liquidity trades and
Yes, yes.
so the results may become stronger if you're able to.
Well, that's another argument for because ultimately we are finding a null result.
Correct.
So what this liquidity impact could trigger false positive, but yet we don't see any false positives.
Yeah.
Terry.
So I discussed the paper at Stern. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. You added at least one of the things you added was extending the sample period back and showing that the affiliated funds were potentially information sharing earlier. I think that's a really nice addition. And I guess I wanted to reemphasize Josh's point that that change could potentially be exploited more. I understand your sample period is relatively short there, so maybe you won't have enough power. But to the extent we're really worried about the impact of this information sharing, it might well be most prevalent in that early part of the sample. And you could try and detect whether or not there are any causal impacts to the changes in behavior before or after that. And you might also think about how, if there is sort of intentional information sharing that's happening with the affiliate funds, their change in behavior from when the dealers could share or at least were potentially sharing with affiliated funds, the movement of that information sharing to the affiliate funds would potentially occur around that when the settlement was and when they stopped doing it. So I think you have potentially a lot of interesting variation there. I don't know if it's this paper or some other one.
So let me just make sure I understand. You're saying that we could zoom in a little bit more to the July period to do more like expanded studies of the behavior, the change in the behavior of the dealers and the affiliated clients.
That's right. I mean, you'd have 6 months before and 6 months after, and maybe that's a long enough time period, but that's when you really see the action. Everything else that you're doing requires a lot of assumptions. I think you're doing the best you can, so I'm not going to quibble with them. But there you really have a change that's happening, and that's potentially when we can learn a lot about the economics.
That's super helpful. Yeah, as you see, we already incorporate a lot of your comments from the discussion. We also added the net volume, the P&L, etc. Yeah, thank you so much for this one. We'll try this one out. Albert.
Albert, your hand is still up, but maybe that's
sorry. I will lower my hand now. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. In that case, anyone else want to ask a question? All right. Well, it looks like we don't have any further questions for you. So maybe we should go ahead and wrap up. We'll have our next meeting of the Microstructure Exchange in 2 weeks when Vincent Morin will be presenting. Hope to see you all back there then. Thanks so much for a great presentation, Chaojun.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone, for giving your comments to the paper. Bye.